Joseph thought I was a stutterer and never took me into his social circle. At a friend gathering, one of his buddies joked, "How do you even argue with a stutterer?" His first love laughed and said, "Takes her 3 minutes to say one sentence, she's so dumb." Last time, she couldn't even get the words out, almost crying in frustration. Everyone burst into laughter. Looks like he's not planning to marry her. Joseph shrugged indifferently, a mute, get bored of her, and just break up. Later, I appeared at the party, arm in arm with his older brother, answering questions smoothly. Joseph grabbed my wrist, his voice cold as he asked, "When did your stutter get better?" A man standing next to me wrapped his arm around my waist, laughing, "Sorry, she's been cursing, she's good at sneaking away." When I rushed into the bar, drenched in heavy rain, the atmosphere inside was just right. Joseph, amidst the cheers, was holding his first love's chin and kissing her with a smile. His first love, Kayla, was crying, her face a picture of sorrow and injustice. Joseph's eyes darkened. "Still running?" She shook her head through her sobs. "I won't run anymore, just please stop bullying me." "Drink up, and I won't bully you." I froze in place, the dull ache in my heart expanding slowly. It felt like hundreds of tiny silver needles were being buried deep inside. I had been with Joseph for 3 years, and he hated my stutter, never letting me into his social circle. His first love, Kayla, had left him when he was at his lowest and gone abroad. Now that she was back, Joseph had proudly introduced her to his friends. Kayla downed a shot of strong liquor, clearly already drunk, helplessly wrapping her arms around Joseph's neck like she didn't care about being touched. The possessiveness in Joseph's eyes grew stronger with each passing second. Before things could get worse, I chose to walk in. "Joseph, your medicine." I stood in the doorway, my body soaked through, my voice trembling. Whenever it rained, Joseph's joints would ache from the old injury he'd gotten when he saved me years ago. I had come to deliver his medicine. Joseph's eyes darkened slightly in displeasure. "It's still raining outside, why are you here?" "I was worried you'd be in pain." Joseph waved at the waiter to take the medicine, cutting me off. "It's too chaotic here, just go back." Wow, Joseph really cares about his girlfriend. Kayla curled up in Joseph's arms, her gaze blurry as she looked at me. She was wrapped in Joseph's coat, and he had turned up the air conditioning to keep her warm, making the rest of his friends sweat and uncomfortable, but none of them dared to complain. Now, that was called caring. Kayla suddenly grabbed Joseph's arm. "Let her sing, okay? You want to hear?" Joseph's face softened, his eyes lighting up with pleasure at how he'd given in to Kayla. He knew very well that, in my current state, singing would only make me look foolish. I took 2 steps back. "I'll leave first." Kayla suddenly giggled, mimicking me, "I'll leave first." Joseph's eyes brightened, a faint smile crossing his face. He grabbed Kayla's wrist, saying, "Let her go, why should she leave?" My face burned. I turned and pushed open the door. In the last moment, I heard Joseph's friend ask, "How do you even argue with a little stutterer?" Kayla, with a drunken slur, mumbled, "She takes 3 minutes to say one sentence, she's so dumb." Last time, she couldn't even speak, almost crying in frustration. Joseph scoffed, his eyes filled with indulgence as if about to spill over. "Can't raise a little thing. She can't remember the good I've done, just knows how to be jealous of others." "Joseph, when are you breaking up with the little stutterer? At this rate, you'll take Kayla to a hotel tonight, right?" Joseph leaned against the sofa, his tone cold. "A stutterer, get bored and just break up." Then he looked at Kayla, his eyes clouding with something else. "As long as it makes Kayla change her mind, everything's worth it." But what he didn't know was that my stutter was almost completely gone. I had come to tell him the good news. But now, it seemed unnecessary. I walked out of the bar in a daze, the gray sky still drizzling. In front of the door, a black Bentley was parked. I braved the rain and approached the car, wiping the rain from my lashes. The window rolled down to reveal a sharp and handsome side profile. The man inside, dressed in a black suit, exuded an air of quiet nobility. "Sorry, I've disappointed you." I apologized softly. The cold man in the car was Joseph's older brother, Austin, the head of their family. A few months ago, he had found me and briefly explained his intentions. "Joseph is my younger brother, so I hope the two of you can have a good future together." For his brother's happiness, Austin had hired experts from abroad, spending a lot of money, which eventually helped improve my stuttering. But Joseph no longer loved me. Austin shifted his gaze from the tablet and spoke 2 words, "Get in." I opened the door carefully, afraid my wet clothes would dirty the leather seats. Once inside, I curled up in the corner. Austin had a unique aura. Dignified and reserved, he commanded both respect and fear. He hung up a business call and turned to look at me. "So, how about considering liking someone else?" "What?" I met his cold, detached gaze, my heart tightening. Austin spoke as if discussing business. "You could marry me. I have everything Joseph has, and even more. In terms of benefits, I'm more suitable than him." The car fell silent. The rain pattered on the roof like a passionate symphony. I was caught off guard. Why? He seemed to be trying to steal his own brother's girl. Austin curled his lips into a slight smile, his eyes cold and clear. "You know, my grandfather is pushing for me to marry quickly. If you're willing to help, it would be even better. As repayment, I'll give you anything you want. Of course, you can also reject me. I'll give you time to think." At that moment, I seemed to glimpse a real businessman. Austin was more mature and steady than Joseph. He knew how to control the whole game. He also knew how to maximize his profits. Their elders had saved my life. With such a big favor hanging over me, I felt like I had no reason to refuse. Finally, I said cautiously, "I'll think about it. If you end up liking someone in the future, we'll still get a divorce." Austin returned his gaze to the tablet and murmured, "We'll see when the time comes." That night, Austin drove me back to the rented apartment. Watching the black car silently disappear into the dusk, I opened my phone. Joseph had posted on IG just a few minutes ago. The background was a hotel room. Kayla was curled up beside him, fast asleep, her lips swollen, her long hair disheveled. The caption read, "So good." I stared at the sky, taking a few deep breaths, suppressing the overwhelming urge to break down. I sent Joseph a message, "I want to talk to you." He didn't reply, as if he had died. I knew Joseph would never come back. For an entire month, Joseph disappeared without a trace. That day, I gathered my emotions, sent Joseph a breakup message, and blocked all his contacts. I mustered up the courage to marry Austin. Austin was very busy. The day we signed the marriage papers, he had to leave for a business trip. After finishing the paperwork, Austin had the driver take me to his villa in the city and moved my things from the rented apartment. On the 3rd day after we married, Austin was still away. As night fell, the villa was eerily quiet. I turned on a small light and walked into the master bedroom. The room was decorated in gray and white tones, minimalist and spacious. In the adjoining closet, Austin's expensive clothes and watches filled the shelves. And a few of my clothes. At 10 p.m., the sound of a door opening came from the living room. I thought it was Austin returning, so I opened the door, but the familiar voice I hadn't heard in a while came through the crack. It was Joseph. "My brother's on a business trip. We're staying here tonight." I could hear Kayla's breath coming in short gasps. "Joseph. I can't breathe." Joseph's slow chuckle followed, "You'll get your turn soon." In the still of the night, I curled up in bed, unable to breathe as I listened to the sounds from next door. When Austin pushed open the bedroom door, my eyes were already swollen from crying. Through blurred vision, I said, "Why are you back early?" He had a coat draped over his arm, as if he had come straight from the door. He didn't even have time to hang it up. He looked tired, his body carrying the chill of the night. "Why are you crying?" His cold tone unexpectedly gave me an immense sense of security. He took off his watch, bent down, and cupped my chin. "This is your place. Why don't you ask them to leave?" The heat of his rough touch burned my skin. My ears turned red immediately. "But he's your brother." For Joseph, Austin had been willing to spend money to cure my stutter. What right did I have to ask his brother to leave? At that moment, the noises from next door grew louder again. Kayla's voice was soft and sultry. I wanted to get out of bed and grab a pair of earplugs, but in my hurry, I tripped over a small stool. I knelt on the floor with a thud. "Ah!" I cried out in pain. The noise from next door stopped immediately. Austin sighed, bent down, and picked me up. What's the rush? He was about to carry me out of the bedroom when the door was suddenly knocked on. Joseph called out cautiously, Austin, did you bring someone home? The next second, the doorknob was turned. I froze in place, too scared to move. In that tense moment, Austin calmly supported me and pressed my back against the door. I panicked and wrapped my arms around his neck. Like a koala bear, I clung to him. The contrast of cold and warmth mingled with our body heat. My gaze shifted downward. I caught a glimpse of his clear, slightly lazy smile reflected in his eyes. His tie had been pulled out of place, revealing a small part of his exquisite collarbone below his Adam's apple. It was both reserved and tempting. It was utterly unfair. Austin. My voice trembled. Suddenly, I realized just how suggestive this position was. Austin suppressed a mysterious emotion in his gaze. Can you call for me? I shook my head. Outside, Joseph seemed anxious. Did you bring a woman home? Austin smiled at me, but his words were cold. Do I need to report my relationship to you? He clearly was used to being the boss. Joseph choked on his words. I think I heard. You heard wrong. Austin's hand moved along my waist, slowly drifting lower. As my breathing quickened, he whispered, if you can't call, then sing for me. Don't worry, your voice is beautiful. This was the first time anyone had complimented me. My face flushed with embarrassment, and I didn't know what came over me. Good little bunny. I blurted out. I stopped after singing just a few words. Because Austin's gaze had completely changed. That line is hard to resist. His voice carried a teasing tone. It was like a feather, tickling the heart. I lowered my head, not daring to look at him. My face was hot and flushed. Suddenly, everything outside the door went quiet. Joseph's voice trembled. Austin, who is your girlfriend? Austin locked the door with a click. His voice was firm and unyielding. Tonight is my and your sister-in-law's wedding night. She doesn't like noise. So, take your woman and get out of my house. When Kayla left, she seemed to be crying. With a faint sound of the door closing, the world fell silent again. But I was still pressed against the door by Austin. The darkness tinted his eyes with an indescribable depth. I felt a little warm and shifted my neck. Austin, it's late. You must be tired. I was so nervous I couldn't speak smoothly. No hurry. I still need to apply medicine for you. His deep, restrained voice sounded particularly alluring in the dark. Austin held me and opened the bedroom door. The cold wind from outside blew against my already sweat-soaked back. I shivered. Austin brought over a first aid kit and squatted in front of me. Under the dim light, the wedding ring on his ring finger glimmered, making me feel a little disoriented. It felt like everything that had happened tonight was just a dream. I couldn't help but think back to the first time I met Austin. In my first year of university, I won first place in the citywide writing competition. The school held an awards ceremony. His family's company had sponsored many students, including me. So that day, Austin, as a sponsor representative, sat in the audience. Joseph, my boyfriend at the time, found my stutter embarrassing and left halfway through the event. Austin watched the entire thing without saying a word. The moment I gave my acceptance speech was nothing short of a disaster. My stutter had caused serious delays. When Austin left, snow began to fall heavily, and the roads became impassable. I heard he missed an important meeting because of it. My teacher took me to apologize to Austin. Austin, I'm sorry. My lips were blue from the cold, and I was trembling as I spoke. The black car window lowered a crack. His gaze met mine through the snowstorm, and for a moment, it felt like time froze. It's okay. Your work deserved first place. The weather's bad, but that has nothing to do with you. Go home. That was the only time in my student life I had ever been praised and cared for. I felt so grateful to the Fu family because of it. What's wrong? Austin's voice pulled me back from my memories. He was holding my calf, and as the ointment slid between his fingers, it generated a warm sensation. I smiled. Austin, I will repay you properly. After hearing this, Austin paused his actions. Alyssa, from the time I was 18, the money I use for charity each year amounts to billions. Do you think I need repayment? He looked up, his gaze sharp and intense, as though it could hook my soul. Or is it that the reason you're so kind to Joseph is to repay me? His words hit a nerve, and I hurriedly changed the subject. Then, what do you want? What I want, you've already given me. Joseph's voice was calm, yet filled with determination. The rest, I'll get in the future. After Austin finished applying the medicine, he had to leave in a hurry due to a phone call. I touched the wedding ring on my finger, warmth filling my heart. It seemed that marrying him wasn't so bad after all. That summer, which dragged on for a long time, didn't want to leave. The news agency transferred me from the entertainment section to the finance section, and I continued my work as a writer. On the same day, Joseph transferred to our company and became my boss. Kayla became his personal secretary. That day, I once again heard Kayla's voice outside the bathroom door. Her tone was full of suppressed frustration. Are you shameless, Kayla? Joseph's voice was laced with anger. It seemed like they had another fight. Kayla wasn't backing down. If I'm shameless, then go find that stuttering girl. You can't handle the fine things in life, so you like eating leftovers. Yes, leftovers are tastier than you. Joseph's harsh words made Kayla cry. I just felt unlucky. That day, Joseph, who had been out of touch for a while, showed up at my door. It's been a month, where have you been? He pinned me against the hallway, his voice laced with a smile, but his eyes were cold and dangerous. I avoided his touch with indifference. We broke up. A dark glint flashed in Joseph's eyes. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. Why aren't you stuttering anymore? Get lost. I had language training every week. I couldn't speak complex sentences, but swearing wasn't a problem. Perhaps he had argued with Kayla, but Joseph was radiating a stubbornness that felt almost obsessive. Ignoring my struggles, he dragged me into his car. I'm calling the police. Joseph tossed my bag onto the back seat, locked the doors with swift decisiveness. Call the police? Aren't you supposed to be meeting my parents? It's a family dinner today. My grandfather and brother will be there. I'll introduce you to them. I felt a sinking feeling in my chest. Joseph, I'm married. Joseph slammed his fist onto the steering wheel. The car honked sharply. Who's the blind fool who married you? The dark anger in his eyes evaporated when he saw my wedding ring. I should have known, no way. He scoffed. Don't lie to me. This cheap ring doesn't even have a diamond. Whoever married you must be a poor bastard. This was the ring I had chosen. It was the cheapest one in the store. Because I didn't want anything flashy. As for Austin's ring, it was even simpler, almost plain. But he still wore it. Seeing me eye him warily, Joseph's mood seemed to improve. In this world, no one dares to take what's mine. If you're so confident, let your husband come to my house and try to take me. Joseph drove at breakneck speed, taking me to his family's dinner. My phone rang nonstop, buried under the seat in the back. When we got out of the car, I fought the nausea rising in my chest and steadied myself. Joseph dragged me into the house. There, I locked eyes with Austin, who was leaning by the window, talking on the phone. A half-burned cigarette dangled from his fingers. His expression was cold, like he was dealing with something troublesome. When he saw me, Austin slowly lowered his phone, his gaze landing on the spot where Joseph had a firm grip on my wrist. It sent an unsettling chill down my spine. Had it been him who called me earlier? I tried to pull my hand away, but Joseph wouldn't let go. Instead, in front of everyone, he dragged me directly to his grandfather. Grandfather, this is my girlfriend. I'm not, I quickly protested. The elderly man spoke quickly, unfazed. I know you're the kind of kid the company sponsors, but you're a good kid. Family background isn't a problem. As long as you're a good person and loyal in love, I approve. Joseph's eyes swept across the room. That was when I saw Kayla, sitting alone in the corner, looking utterly dejected. Her lips were pressed tight, white with frustration. Was he doing this to provoke Kayla again? But I was already tired of all of this. I pushed Joseph's hand away, decisively. I'm married. Grandfather blinked in surprise. Such an important matter, why didn't you mention it? I'm not with Joseph. I'm married to someone else. When Austin heard someone else, his expression darkened with displeasure. He picked up his glass of wine and turned to walk away. I didn't know what to do, so I continued, I think Mr. Joseph's most likely to marry Miss Kayla now. He took Kayla to a hotel when we hadn't even broken up yet and didn't respond to my messages for a month. I already considered it a breakup. Now, I'm married, and he still wants to interfere in my life. Isn't that a bit much? The people who had been waiting for congratulations suddenly fell silent, their ears perked up for gossip. Some even joked, wow, the young master's cheating again, playing the other woman like it's nothing. It was harsh, but it felt so satisfying. Joseph didn't expect me to be this bold. Who taught you to speak like that? Wait, when did you start speaking so fluently? Grandfather's cane swept across Joseph's leg. Kayla? What's she even worth, and you still want to marry her? Joseph groaned in pain, and Kayla, who had been quietly sitting in the corner, suddenly rushed over. Don't hit Joseph. If you must, hit me instead. The scene instantly became chaotic. I silently stepped back, preparing to leave. Suddenly, a hand yanked at my arm, pulling me hard into a dark room. The door clicked shut behind us. Then, a low voice came from behind me. My heart, which had been heavy with frustration, softened just slightly. I vented, almost complaining. Joseph dragged me into the car earlier, and my phone and bag were thrown onto the back seat. I added, it's still in the car. Okay. Austin touched my ear gently, but his tone was distant. Second question, is admitting we're married so shameful? That's when I realized he was upset with what I'd said earlier. I felt a little down. This is the first time meeting the parents, and I'm still tied to Joseph. If you get dragged into this, what will others think of you? Austin suddenly smiled. How will they think of me? I sighed, a fool, so easy to deceive. A fool? Austin laughed softly and then lowered his head to kiss me. The suddenness of it swept all my reasoning away. He kissed me? Austin had eaten mint candy, masking the smell of smoke. The mix of coolness and heat was strange yet intoxicating. He slowly pushed me against the glass door of the kitchen. The air grew heated. Outside, Joseph was yelling at his grandfather, promising. Alyssa will divorce soon, she doesn't like that guy at all. She only married him out of spite for me. Inside, Austin held me close, his long fingers teasing the curve of my skirt. His eyes followed my every reaction. With a playful smile, he whispered. He says you don't like me at all. Really? I was drowning in his soft, intimate voice. I wrapped my arms around his neck, my voice barely above a whisper, let's keep it down, there are people outside. He straightened my back. Answer me first. He was more aggressive tonight. Answer me, and I'll let you go. My legs felt weak, and my whole body leaned into Austin. Before things could get worse, I whispered, I like you. Austin's hand slid into my hair, loosening his tie before kissing me deeply. If you like me, keep going. When I came out of the kitchen, my skirt was wrinkled, looking a bit disheveled. A few minutes later, Austin appeared from behind the door, pulling it shut behind him. Still in his suit, he looked effortlessly sharp, but the knocked-over cleaning supplies in the kitchen were the only signs of what had just happened. Grandfather had gone to the garden to clear his mind after the heated discussion. The others followed him. I pushed open the glass door to the garden, and the cool breeze helped cool the heat on my face. Joseph was holding forth, saying, Austin? Getting older, can't keep people around anymore. Austin didn't look like the kind of person who had trouble keeping people around. Joseph began to show off. You should start cultivating feelings from college, just like I did. Then, no matter how much you hurt her, she'll come crawling back like a dog whenever you wave your hand. I told her to divorce, and she did it right away. I was about to step forward and argue, but then I suddenly realized my skirt had been grabbed. Kayla was curled up in the corner, hugging her knees, her eyes red from crying. Is he going to marry you? Are you happy? You followed him all the way to the family banquet? You have some nerve. I fell silent. It was hard to decide whether to scold Joseph or Kayla first. They were both despicable. She stared at the folds of my skirt, eyes full of hatred. You're cheating right in front of me. Yeah, he always does things that hurt me. Just to chase me. Kayla raised her eyes, looking at me with a pitiful expression. He's mine. This is our little game. You wouldn't understand. A small breeze blew past. I felt my scalp tingle in embarrassment. Scratching my forehead, I squatted down in front of her, hesitating for a long time before asking, "Did someone dig out your brain?" Kayla's face blanked for a moment. What did you say? Didn't your mother teach you how to be a normal person? Kayla seemed to be triggered by the way I looked at her like she was an idiot. She suddenly burst into tears in front of everyone. You're a stutterer, an orphan, with no financial independence, and you even married a poor man. But somehow, you're living better than I am. I know. Life is inherently unequal. I don't want to argue anymore. Please, let Joseph leave me alone. Her sulking words made Joseph, not far away, scoff. Kayla, when did I ever say I liked you? Kayla's face instantly turned pale. Not far off, Austin was walking through the crowd toward us. Joseph continued, even if Alyssa gets a divorce, I'd still marry her. He had no idea that his brother was already standing right behind him. Alyssa. Joseph gazed at me with deep affection. Tomorrow, you get a divorce, and I'll go with you to get the certificate. Just then, Austin calmly lifted his foot and kicked Joseph in the rear. The next moment. Splash. Joseph lost his balance and tumbled headfirst into the pool. Water splashed everywhere. Everyone stood frozen for a moment, still processing what had just happened. He'd just kicked Joseph into the pool like a dog. Joseph sputtered as he surfaced, looking both surprised and furious. What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy? Help me up. Austin stood at the edge of the pool, kicked his hand away from the ledge, and laughed. This is how you convince your sister-in-law to get a divorce? You're really asking for trouble, huh? Joseph was stunned. The guests were equally stunned. Kayla's lips trembled, and she finally let go of my skirt. Sister-in-law? Who's the sister-in-law? I carefully stepped around the pool and walked over to Austin, linking my arm with his. In front of everyone, I suddenly began to cry, covering my face. Your brother keeps harassing me. He knows we're married, but still shamelessly says he likes stealing his brother's wife. I'm so scared. The guests were horrified. Doesn't that say something about his character? He was just threatening to make the sister-in-law divorce. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Joseph stared at me in disbelief. Alyssa, stop being dramatic. I was just trying to piss off Kayla. I quickly hid behind Austin. He just said he loves me so much. Is he serious? How could someone like that exist? Austin's eyes showed a trace of amusement, but he didn't expose me. He just nodded along. Is that so? Then maybe we need Grandpa to step in. Kayla forgot to cry as the tears hung in her eyes. It's not like that. He loves me. I interrupted her, my voice full of mock sympathy. Miss Kayla, you don't need to defend him. He can't clear his name anymore. Kayla panicked. How could it be you? It's clearly me. She tried to shift everyone's attention back to her. Unfortunately for her, the guests all shook their heads. Miss Kayla, it's none of your business. Just stay out of it. In the end, Austin, Joseph, and I were all summoned to Grandpa's study. Austin noticed the sweat on my palms and chuckled quietly, leaning close to my ear. You were pretty good at making up stories earlier. What's wrong? Getting scared now? I couldn't say anything in response, feeling nervous. Later, say whatever you want. I've got your back, it's fine. My face turned pale. So I can just make things up? Austin smiled. As long as it makes you happy. Now, tell me what's going on. In the study, Grandpa sat across from us, exuding an aura of authority. Joseph started talking nonstop. Grandpa, Alyssa was my girlfriend in college, we were together for 5 years. When she saw my brother had money, she climbed onto him. You can tell she's no good. Austin didn't even look up, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You're a good person, huh? Good people cheat, that's really scary. Joseph choked. What are you talking about? Austin raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying the fact that Joseph couldn't do anything. Joseph quickly turned to me. Alyssa, you tell him. Me? I shrank behind Austin, my gaze flickering as I stared at Joseph. What can I say? I can't exactly repeat what you said about my brother and grandpa. Joseph's eyelids twitched. Alyssa, shut your mouth. I quickly hid behind Austin again, and turned on the voice recorder. In the cold, furious gaze of Joseph, the recording started playing. That old bastard has money to burn, so he likes funding poor students. Counting on my brother? He'll have no heirs, sooner or later. At that moment, Joseph's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He lunged at me. You slut, pulling dirty tricks. Enough. Grandpa was furious and swung his cane at Joseph's knee. The cane snapped. Joseph screamed in pain as he fell in front of me. Grandpa, I was just drunk. Grandpa didn't listen to his excuses, stomping his foot in anger. Call the lawyer, draft an agreement, and kick him out of the family. When Austin and I were leaving, I accidentally stepped on Joseph's arm. The floor echoed with a sharp, painful cry. Austin put his arm around my shoulders. Grandpa, we'll head out first. She's been shocked, she can barely stand. It was a chaotic night. Austin and I went back to our villa. We didn't speak along the way. As soon as we entered the door, Austin suddenly grabbed my waist and pinned me against the hallway cabinet. The whole place was dark. Before I could even turn on the lights. Is this the gift you gave me? Austin's tone had shifted from relaxed to intense as his hand brushed over my neck. His fingertips pressed against my pulse. It was hard to tell if it was a caress or a hunt. My heart began to race. I said I'd repay you. Tonight, Joseph was removed from the list of heirs. The inheritance rights were redefined, and Austin came out as the biggest winner. When did Joseph say all that? Last week. He was with Kayla in the company restroom. I explained. I just wanted to record proof, to avoid him slandering me later. Who knew I'd need it tonight? Austin stared at me, silent. Could it be that the commotion tonight had caused him trouble? I instinctively apologized. I won't do it again. Before I could finish, I let out a short gasp. Austin picked me up and sat me on the cabinet. His hands braced on either side, surrounding me in a tight space. He trapped me in the small area. The gift is nice, but I prefer something else. Something else? I was completely confused. What else do you want? Austin's voice dropped, a soft kiss brushing against my ear. How about you sing that Little Rabbit song all the way through? The moment their lips met, it was brief, but his warmth lingered. Before long, it had transformed into the heat of boiling water. Luring me, making me fall deeper under his spell. Austin's breathing grew slow and heavy, like a wolf that had been lying in wait for a long time. And a wolf, above all else, has patience. Austin. You know, I can't resist you. Then give up the resistance. Will I get into trouble after singing? Austin pulled me into his arms and casually threw me onto the sofa, leisurely taking off his watch. Probably lose more than just your life. In the dim moonlight, I finally saw his face clearly. His dark eyes were filled with intense possessiveness. Before I could even react, Austin leaned down again, his voice soft but firm. Now, are you ready to continue? I never imagined that someone like Austin could be so obsessed with that song. I lay in bed for 3 days, when suddenly I got a call from the editor-in-chief. Alyssa, we have an important interview with a key figure. You and Kayla will collaborate, and whoever's interview is the best will get to stay. Without Joseph's protection anymore, Kayla, just like me, had started doing fieldwork and interviews. I quickly jumped out of bed. Thank you, editor, I'll make the most of this opportunity. This was my first time being involved in an interview for the finance section. Of course, I couldn't let it slip by. Plus, it was a good excuse to get away for a while. That night, I packed my bags and sent Austin a message. I'm going on a business trip. Where to? To avoid him pulling me back home, I casually said, a city. After a pause, I added weakly, you should take care of your health. I could already imagine the raised eyebrow he'd have when he read the message. Austin didn't object much, only reminded me, be careful. I let out a sigh of relief. Just as I left, the editor-in-chief called again. The interviewee suddenly went to a city. I booked you a ticket. You're leaving tonight. The time was tight, and before I could ask any questions, I was already being whisked away onto a flight to a city. The plane landed. It was a tropical city, and as soon as the door opened, the heat hit me. The deputy editor led us straight to a 5-star hotel. I was in a hurry to get back to my room and prepare the interview outline when I was suddenly stopped. Alyssa, really, you finished using me and then hid here? Joseph blocked me at the door. Looks like you're doing quite well since you've been with my brother. I stepped back slowly, recalling how furious he'd been last time. The moment I moved, it triggered Joseph. He grabbed me roughly. Running away? After sticking with me for 5 years, you're so heartless? In the struggle, he suddenly noticed the hickey on my neck. His face darkened. You slept with him? Does it concern you? We broke up. Joseph sneered, you only like him because he's richer than me. I snapped back, he's not just richer than you, he's kinder, more responsible, more capable. He even has more abs than you, aren't you jealous? Joseph's face turned red with embarrassment. You're so materialistic. You're so high and mighty, don't like money, but once you take off your branded clothes and leave your fancy hotel, you'll be sleeping on the streets tonight. Joseph was almost seething with anger. Who the hell cured your stuttering? You. I squinted, imitating Joseph's way of speaking, talking for 3 minutes just to say one thing, so slow. Then, I bit down on his hand. He yelped in pain. I quickly opened the door and rushed inside. That night, I stayed up late finishing the interview draft and preparing thoroughly. I was so nervous that I didn't even reply to Austin's messages. The next morning, he called. What are you doing? I was holding a pile of materials and feeling exhausted. Waiting for the interviewee. They say he's a big shot, but the deputy editor won't tell me anything about him. It's like a mystery box. When are you coming back? I pretended to sound regretful. Maybe a week. A whole week? Yeah, damn boss. Before I could finish my sentence, I turned a corner and found myself face to face with Austin, who was leaning by the floor-to-ceiling window on a call. The morning sunlight shone on his sharp features, softening them a little. I could see the playful look in his eyes. On the other end of the line, Austin's low laugh came through, so, it's still my fault? Alyssa, hurry up. The cameraman was calling for me. I quickly hung up and rushed over, barely daring to look Austin in the eye. One group was the interview team, and the other was Austin's secretarial team. The garden of the villa was packed with people. Austin, Alyssa is late. I apologize on her behalf. Kayla had clearly put some effort into her appearance today, dressed head to toe in Chanel, strutting back and forth in front of everyone. Austin replied, hasn't it not started yet? Is this really considered late? Kayla was speechless. Who came first, you or her? Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting golden flecks into Austin's dark eyes. He narrowed his eyes, like a lazy leopard. But there was a sharpness that couldn't be hidden. Kayla straightened her hair and sat directly in front of Austin. I came first. The photographer kindly reminded her, Kayla, you're blocking the shot. She reluctantly moved out of the way. To be honest, I was a bit nervous. This was my first time doing an interview for the finance section, and I was afraid I hadn't prepared enough. Kayla took out her notebook and cleared her throat. Can you tell us when you started working with the company? At this, Austin's secretarial team all looked confused. Austin stared at her calmly. 16. Have you experienced anything interesting while managing the company? No. Have you faced any setbacks? Suddenly, the head of Austin's secretarial team stood up. Sorry, can we ask some more professional questions? Our guidelines are clear, we're not doing a personal biography. Kayla's face turned red. But these are things everyone is curious about. Sorry, if you continue with these questions, we'll have to terminate the interview. The deputy editor quickly apologized, sorry, she's new and doesn't have much experience. At the same time, he signaled for me to take over. After all, everyone knew about my relationship with Austin. My palms were sweating from nervousness as I stepped up and sat on the side of the camera. When I faced the lens, my voice trembled during my first words. Austin glanced at me, his gaze now cool and professional. Clearly, this was business. I straightened my posture, quickly settling into the right mindset. The topic of this issue is the new cycle of scientific innovation and the contradictions impacting the capital markets, which revolve around various cycles. What is your understanding of this term? Austin's expression softened, and his voice deepened. Right now, we're in a new window of the technological revolution. Traditional frameworks for analysis and structure are about to be restructured. I carefully noted the key points, relieved that I could understand and follow his thoughts. Once I was immersed in the conversation, the nervousness faded away. The interview lasted nearly 2 hours. During the breaks, when I looked tired, Austin would stop and let everyone rest. Otherwise, everyone was focused, listening intently. The deputy editor kept signaling to me, dig deeper, push harder. Kayla, bored, was texting Joseph to come pick her up. After the interview, I saw Joseph staring at me, his eyes full of regret. The deputy editor patted me on the shoulder. Well done. Kayla snorted, she's interviewing her husband, of course she did well. If I were interviewing Joseph next time, I'd do just as well. The deputy editor choked and didn't respond to her. Instead, he turned to me. Make sure this article is well written. Don't let me down. I nodded. I will. As the crowd dispersed, I suddenly realized I was still standing in the territory of some wolf. Just as I was about to make a run for it, Austin grabbed the back of my shirt collar. Where are you going? Going to eat, I stammered. Austin's gaze intersected with Joseph's not far away. He casually wrapped his arm around my waist. I think there were a few things that weren't clear earlier. We should go over them in more detail. I perked up. Really? Really? And we can have lunch while we're at it. Okay. Austin had already arranged lunch for us. I devoured it quickly and then moved over to Austin's side. So, shall we start? Austin glanced at my notes. Page 2. You could add a few more points from these aspects. Go ahead, I said. As he spoke, I scribbled down notes as quickly as I could. Wait, I have a question about this part. Go ahead, Austin replied, and I didn't notice when his hand had found its way to the small of my back. Through the black professional skirt, the heat from his palm seeped through without a trace. I suddenly stopped talking. What are you doing? Sorry, it's just, the first time I see you like this. Austin's gaze had shifted at some point. He gently pulled me into his lap. You're really captivating like this. We should head to the bedroom later and go over this in more detail. Once the confirmation was made, he went crazy. On Monday, I returned to work. A colleague nudged me. Kayla's already submitted her article. I hear it's pretty good. She used your video material, though. I stood up and went to find the editor-in-chief. In the office, both the editor-in-chief and deputy editor were singing praises for Kayla's article. The flow of the writing is very smooth. For a newcomer, it's impressive. Kayla couldn't hide her smugness. My first draft has already been sent to your email. After knocking on the door and reminding them, I left. Alyssa. Kayla called out from behind me. She asked sourly, how much did he teach you in private? I turned to face her, completely candid. Just like you, I only found out who he was right before the interview. Don't hide it. You hit all the right points during the interview. If he didn't help you, who would believe it? The deputy editor suddenly appeared, stopping me. Alyssa, the article is good. We're using yours this time. With just that one sentence, Kayla's smile instantly faded. Why? Is it just because her husband is Austin? The deputy editor had been fed up with her for a while. Her writing is experienced, with independent thought and depth. Why shouldn't I use it? You can doubt my abilities, but you can't insult my professional ethics. You're just bullying the weak. This crappy place, anyone who wants to stay, can stay. Kayla, looking like she'd suffered a huge injustice, turned and stormed out. Once the interview article was published, it was reposted by major financial newspapers. Austin's interview video went viral in the finance section. Sharp-eyed passersby posted the video in an entertainment gossip group. Alyssa is the wife who takes our paparazzi shots, right? At Alyssa, did you change careers? I replied, no, I just started working in the finance section. I still had a decent following online. The comments were full of lament. The gossip world losing you is a loss to all humanity. Does no one notice how good she is at finance interviews too? In just 2 or 3 days, the gossip section and the finance section started crossing paths. Someone with a sharp eye suddenly captured a picture. They circled the rings on our ring fingers. Excuse me, is this a couple's ring? The post quickly gathered a crowd of onlookers. Some people said, this must be a wedding ring. Second floor, go look up the profile online. Austin is married. Soon, the post's comments started growing exponentially. While I was sitting next to Austin, editing the article, my phone started buzzing nonstop. What's going on? Austin asked. I opened my phone in confusion, and saw the rapidly growing comments and private messages. I clicked on one, and it was a picture. The screen was filled with text. I managed to catch the headline. Seductive entertainment reporter Alyssa and cold CEO Austin. My mind instantly went into overdrive. The next second, I turned around and met Austin's inquisitive gaze. I quickly hid my phone. He shouldn't have seen it, right? It's nothing. It's late, let's sleep. I took a shower, and when I came back, I saw Austin staring at his phone screen, deep in thought. I suddenly had a bad feeling. I leaned in to take a look. The exaggerated text made my head spin. Don't look. Austin chuckled. I think it's kind of funny. How about we try it? There are 2 articles here. You can pick one you like. The phone was finally dropped into the blanket. Those well-meaning netizens who wrote stories never expected that every word they'd written was going to be acted out word for word that night. Austin and I became the talk of the town. One evening after work, Joseph stopped me again. Let's have dinner. I frowned. No, I have plans. Joseph grabbed my arm. I watched your interview video. You really have a lot of ideas. I didn't just come up with ideas recently. From the first day we met, I've always had ideas. Joseph persisted. Do you remember when we were in college, on that team building trip, and you almost fell into the water? I saved you. I even got a scar on my wrist because of it. I scoffed. So what are you trying to say? You want to repay me? In the past 5 years, I've done everything I could, Joseph said, his expression tightening. You said no, but I regret it. Let's get back together, okay? Don't be with my brother. A man like him will end up with someone more suitable for him. At that moment, a black car stopped next to us. Austin rolled down the window. What's going on here? I coldly replied, I'm being harassed by Joseph. Joseph immediately backed off. She's lying. I said, he wants to get back together with me, and he says you're getting old and your health isn't good. Alyssa, when did you start exaggerating things? Joseph's face was overflowing with grievance. The next second, I opened the car door and got in. Muttering to myself, maybe we should just send him away, he's really annoying. Austin gave Joseph a slight smile. You should leave tomorrow and go to the overseas branch. That place is too remote. It's good for resting and recuperating. Austin held my hand and sighed. Your sister-in-law has a kind heart. You should learn to be grateful. Joseph was bound and put on a plane heading to a foreign country. Kayla had lost her support system. She had started to look for other options. One day, I went to the office to find Austin, and I faintly heard Kayla crying from inside. It was my parents who forced me to leave back then. Now, I'm all alone, and Joseph has left me. What am I supposed to do? Austin's tone was indifferent. Do what you have to. You have hands and feet, do you think you can't support yourself? Kayla choked up. This isn't fair. What's not fair? You could save Alyssa from the fire, help her get established at the news agency, so why can't you help me? Mr. Austin, I've been hurt by Joseph too. If you won't help me, then what? Austin remained unfazed. Are you going to jump out of my office window? Nice try. This is a good place. Find somewhere else to bury yourself. Kayla was stunned. No, Mr. Austin. Austin immediately called his secretary. Someone's about to jump off a building, call the police. After hanging up, he added, I need to make one thing clear. Alyssa and you have always been in fair competition. If I helped her, right now you should be at a recycling station asking how much plastic bottles sell for per pound, not standing here crying in my office dressed like that. When Kayla was dragged out by the security guards, she happened to see me. Her eyes were full of resentment and unwillingness. Before she could start cursing me, I said, you're an adult. Focus on your career and stop doing things that hurt others. You'll be better off. I didn't expect Kayla to actually listen. And she only heard half of it. My past relationship with Joseph was unexpectedly exposed. Rumors spread like wildfire. They all implied that I abandoned Joseph for his status and power to get close to Austin. At the height of the media frenzy, Kayla came forward with a revelation. Do you know why Alyssa went to the financial section? Because it's a better career path, with Austin backing her up. Alyssa's been pushing other newcomers out of the way, making herself the sole leader. She was with Joseph for 5 years and was a stutterer, but after her condition was treated, she turned around and climbed up to Austin. Her methods are ruthless. Someone in the crowd asked, how do you know all of this? Kayla replied, because I'm the one who was pushed aside. Soon, people dug into Kayla's background. She's not a newcomer. She has a master's degree in journalism from abroad. She pushed out all the highly educated talent, there must be something shady going on. Kayla was smart. After stirring things up just enough, the conflict shifted from personal grudges to class struggle. Workers really relate, we hate these sudden outsiders. Who she wants to marry is her business, but if she's trying to take away my livelihood, I'll fight her to the end. So, Alyssa's articles weren't necessarily written by her? Someone else wrote them for her. She's so rich, hiring a few writers is nothing. Even though Austin and I released a statement right away. The online assault raged like a storm, burying the truth. For a moment, the public was in an uproar. No one was listening. No one cared. They just wanted to vent their frustration on a made-up enemy. And I became the unfortunate target. The situation grew worse, affecting the company as well. The editor-in-chief called me to his office, his face serious. Right now, you have 2 choices. One is to resign, the other is to prove yourself with the News Award in 3 months. The News Award was a prestigious, highly competitive prize, known for its strict judging criteria. No contestant could cheat their way to win this honor. Without a second thought, I chose the latter, determined to fight. I entered the busiest phase of my career since joining the company. On the 6th day of overtime, Austin called me right on time. Hearing the exhaustion in my voice, he paused before asking, do you want me to handle it? I knew he had a professional PR team that could easily suppress the issue. But blocking the voices wasn't the solution. Rather than suppressing everything, I preferred to prove my strength. Let them see the results, and they would respect me. I declined. I'll handle this on my own. Kayla, riding the wave of public opinion, aggressively marketed herself and joined the rival news agency. I heard she landed an interview with a big figure. The articles she wrote during that time weren't bad. The public began to believe that Kayla had been excluded. The editor-in-chief kept reassuring me, it's okay, I believe in your ability. The day I submitted my report, I went home and collapsed into bed. When I woke up, it was pitch black outside. Then I heard Austin's voice. Awake? A heavy feeling weighed on my heart. How long have I been asleep? 2 days and 2 nights, he kissed my forehead, I had to check on you every now and then to make sure you were still alive. 2 days. My heart sank. Does this mean there's a result? Yes, best new journalist, first place. I looked up in disbelief, trying to find Austin's face in the darkness. Austin held my head, resting his forehead against mine, affectionately rubbing my nose. Well done. I buried my head in Austin's chest, my eyes brimming with tears. All the grievances from these past days poured out. Austin patted my back. You did great, really. What about Kayla? No award. I froze. None? The News Association didn't give a reason, just said she didn't make it. I opened my phone and saw that Kayla had posted something a day earlier. Couldn't beat it, I give up. Many people asked, what happened? Someone commented, she was robbed of the award. Could it be Alyssa again? She has her hands in everything. I just quietly watched her stir the pot, even anticipating her ending. When someone is powerless to fight back, you turn their fight into a battle against many. That's what Kayla taught me. That night, the News Association announced the winners. My name was at the top of the list. Kayla deleted her post. Everyone speculated that I had pressured her. But soon, some senior journalists stepped in to clarify. The news award is impossible to manipulate. Miss Kayla's comments didn't just insult the Reporter Association, but also disrespected all of us who have won awards before. In an instant, all the veterans who had been involved in nominations spoke out. There were war correspondents and warriors who spoke for the underprivileged. Kayla had thrown dirt on the collective honor of the profession. Many industry insiders came forward to explain the importance of the award in the journalism world. They demanded an apology from Kayla. I really doubt if Miss Kayla is even a journalism graduate. It seems she doesn't understand the significance of this award. Someone voiced their suspicion. Kayla panicked. I'm just abroad, but I did go to school. Eventually, the official news award account released a statement. We have investigated the allegations made by Miss Kayla. After unanimous evaluation by the expert panel, Ms. Alyssa's work met the selection criteria. Miss Kayla's submission contained too much borrowed content and has been rejected. The selection process is transparent and open, and we welcome public supervision. The online community had a good laugh. What's this? It's just her subtly admitting to plagiarism. She's being very generous, calling it borrowing, ha ha ha. Shameless. She can't even plagiarize properly. Someone posted a short video from Kayla's interview with Austin that day. The comment section exploded. On the 7th day of the scandal, Kayla posted an apology video. But no one was buying it. After that, I stopped paying attention to Kayla. I heard she was exposed for academic fraud. Her graduation thesis was plagiarized. Her degree was revoked. Right before the awards ceremony, she had used her advisor's name to interview a famous foreign economist, but ended up asking all the wrong questions, which ruined her advisor's reputation. It didn't take long before everyone turned on her. The comment section on my posts finally returned to its usual calm. At Grandpa's request, Austin and I had a belated wedding ceremony. Joseph, who had been abroad, came back. He looked weary and gaunt, as if life had taken its toll on him. I heard that after he landed, he went straight to Kayla. She beat him up so badly that his face was bruised, and yet, he was forced to sit in the front row at our wedding. Joseph was livid, his face turning a dark shade of fury, and he went straight back to his branch office that night. I couldn't help but ask, aren't you being a little childish? Austin chuckled. He still dared to show up? Doesn't he want to live? Grandpa took a step back, and Joseph would probably never again get access to the core management of the family business during his lifetime. Of course, we invited many respected figures from the media to our wedding. When it was time for toasts, everyone congratulated us. Alyssa is the rising star of the media world, her future is bright. Yes, it's my honor to marry her. Austin's eyes were filled with tenderness. I've known for a long time that she would make it. One senior colleague pulled me aside and smiled. Did you know that before the awards, Austin secretly contacted me? I froze for a moment. Really? But inside, I felt a pang of unease. Could it be that Austin? The senior laughed. He said he hopes we announce the results soon. He wants his wife to wake up and hear the good news. Seeing the anxious look on my face, the senior chuckled. Don't worry, our selection process won't be affected by anyone. We just announced the results a little earlier this time. And he's quite confident in you. I looked over at Austin, who was chatting with others in the crowd. He seemed to sense my gaze and looked back at me. Our eyes locked. There was so much warmth in his look. I couldn't even count how many times I had fallen for him. The next day was the news awards ceremony. Austin drove me there himself. The traffic was heavy in the distance. It was all the big names attending the gala. Somehow, we ended up talking about what the senior had said. I asked, why do you have so much faith in me? Austin smiled. Because I've read your articles, and I've attended your awards ceremony. I remembered that painful time years ago. In the midst of mocking stares from everyone, Austin was the only one who held his head high, listening intently, word for word, until the very last one. I made you miss a meeting. I felt a little regretful. Austin steered the car smoothly through the traffic, the view ahead widening. I've always believed that listening attentively is the most basic respect you can show someone. That night, after I heard your last word, I knew it was worth staying until the end. Alyssa, your writing has a soul. I can see it. Wherever you go, it's just a matter of time. Up ahead, the cars began to line up at the red carpet. The massive spotlights shone right in the middle. That was the spot I would walk through soon. It was the place I had dreamed about countless times. The car slowly came to a stop at the red carpet. The outside world was as bright as day. Austin unlocked the car, looked at me, and said, go embrace the glory that's yours. I took a deep breath and opened the car door. The blinding flashbulbs instantly enveloped me. People were shouting my name. I smiled and stepped forward, each step taking me closer to the finish line. The path from the classroom stairs to the award stage had, years later, transformed into this dazzling red carpet. Alyssa. Austin's voice came from behind me. It felt like it cut through 5 years of time. Straight to my heart. Walk boldly forward. I'll always be in the audience, waiting for your return. The end.